Hey, what's up, and welcome back to Interpreting the Stars, where today we're talking about Men in Black International, which of course is a 2019 comedy fantasy. It's also a continuation of the Will Smith, Tommy Lee Jones series of the same name, which I own all three of these. It's very close to my heart. I love this series. I've seen all of them pretty much 1.5 billion times each. So I knew going in that I was going to be a little bit biased and it was going to be completely inescapable because I really do love this series. All of them. Even though most people just love the first Men in Black, I love all of them. And the reason why I love Men in Black is because of Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones. That's the reason why most people love Men in Black, so I knew going in that it wasn't going to be the same. Even Men in Black 3 wasn't the same because it didn't have enough Tommy Lee Jones. It had Will Smith, and then Josh Brolin was playing Tommy Lee Jones' character, so it wasn't quite the same. And I knew that this movie got rid of Will Smith too, so it really wasn't going to be the same. So how was it going to be as good? How was it going to be half as good? Well, here's where I was cautiously optimistic. Men in Black did something really, truly incredible because even without Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones, it created a world, a universe even, of what the movie felt like and what you expected from it. So technically speaking, they could potentially bring in new characters into this already established world that we already know and love. Plus, I had faith in Chris Hemsworth and Tessa Thompson because I've seen them before. I know they have chemistry and I know they can both be funny. So I was definitely cautiously optimistic. I was crossing my fingers for them. And what's this movie about? What's Men in Black International about? Men in Black being international. If you want to be specific, if you want to throw a plot in there, it has something to do with a mole within the organization, and then these two Men in Black characters have to figure out who the mole is and blah, 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 blah. But that plot, it's really thrown into the background and mixed within a bunch of other plots. And it's really, honestly, easily forgotten, which is a shame because it's not a bad idea. It's not a bad concept. It's just like the movie wanted to introduce you to a bunch of other characters, a bunch of other settings, a bunch of other locations, but you're kind of confused as to how those locations are connected to anything. That's the problem with this movie. It is super convoluted. It's all over the place, and it doesn't seem like there's one concrete plot or direction the movie's going. That is super, super unfortunate because all of these other movies, they had a really good idea of what it wanted to be. It had a main big bad that the guys had to defeat, and that's it. This one, not so much. There's no real big bad. There is one main bad guy, maybe, sort of, but they're as elusive as Carmen Sandiego, and they're not really going after them anyways. They're just there to fill space and to be bad guys. But as I was hoping it would be, the universe is totally intact, if you will. It feels like Men in Black should. It's got the music down pat. It's got the character chemistry. It's got the aliens. It's got the tech. It's got everything that it should have in order to feel like it's Men in Black. And it does feel like it. And Chris Hemsworth and Tessa Thompson, they do work very, very well together, as I hope they would. The comedy sometimes works for me. Sometimes it doesn't, though. It's not exactly Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones dynamic. They really were opposites in that movie, and it really helped the tone of those films. They were kind of opposites in this movie, just not as much, if that makes any sense. But to be completely honest with you guys, I wasn't always on board with what was going on in this movie. I was often confused. There was just all these different settings and locations, and I didn't know how they connected with anything. And I found myself distracted because of it. That may be my main complaint, but it does affect everything. It affects your ability to see how everybody's role is important in the plot. It affects the obstacles when you're talking about the narrative of the story. Nothing is concrete, nothing is clean, nothing is solid. It's just all over the place. It's just a mesh of things going on, and no amount of feeling like Men in Black and no amount of comedy that these characters portray are able to save it from being terrible. I take that back. The movie's not terrible, but it's getting in that direction. Also, I would argue that it's actually super predictable. It never really tries that hard to hide the fact of who the mole is. I mean, if you know anything about how moles work in TV shows and movies, this was as simple as it gets, and it was super predictable as to who was the mole. So what did I score this movie? 64 out of 100 possible stars, 64%, which means it's the worst rated Men in Black movie I have. Next up would have been Men in Black 3, which I rated 76%. It's just not all it could have been. It's fine and dandy. It's nothing that I want to see again. I don't want to own it. I don't want to add it to my collection. It's just fine. It's a nice try. Guys, tell me what you thought of this movie, Men in Black International, in the comments down below. And as for YouTube, subscribe to me, hit that like button, hit the bell to be notified when I come out with my next review. And until then, peace out!